On today's program, we focus on three painters, each one vastly different from the next. Anthony Saldutto is an artist that enjoys painting a wide variety of themes rendered in either oils or watercolors. Donna Greenstein also uses oils and watercolors and loves to paint mostly agriculturally themed images. And our first artist, Katja van Enden, is a painter that does not follow the rules of traditional painting at all. Katja is a mixed media artist who chooses to create her pieces not on canvas or paper, but on plexiglass, using resins and paint, creating amorphous pieces that are meticulously rendered layer upon layer until she is satisfied with the finished work and sure that it expresses her feelings and intent.
I had a terrible car accident, very freaky. And I couldn't move, and then I realized that I was just stalled, I was paralyzed, I was feeling like I wasn't going anywhere with my life, and realized that I really had to get back into art, and this time I wanted to share it. Until then I was just purely working for myself. Sharing your work, it brings it to a completely new level. You realize that now you're communicating or you're not communicating. When people don't see anything, you see that in their eyes, even if they tell you nice things about your work. It's still different. So yeah, it really propels you. And art is communication, so if you're working purely by yourself, then you're basically talking to yourself. What I want to create is small spaces of refuge. You know, spaces where you can go and look at yourself. A lot of my pieces are very deep, so I hope that it makes you look deep inside of yourself. I usually start from a basic idea, and then I build up on that. So while I'm working, I put in my thoughts, and I it's a conversation with the piece. So I start with these thin layers that build slowly up and slowly start telling the story that comes back to me, and then I look at the piece and think, this is missing, I haven't told this yet or that yet, and in between are layers of resin that hold what I've got in place, and then I build up on that. So until I find this is what I want to say, or the piece tells me that it's finished, basically. So what inspires me is everything that happens to me, really, everything that affects me. My father's Alzheimer's triggered a whole series on memory, because I realized that memories are not just some stories out there, but they're an essential part of you. And if you lose your memories, you basically lose yourself, and you lose your character. And yeah, so I kept thinking about that. That became these little jewel-like pieces that I made, that, you know, these jewels that are our memories that hold us up, drag us down, whatever it is. But yeah, so that was one, his death, you know, everyday life, my children, the connection I have with people. At the moment I work on relationships, so yeah, my kids growing up that are changing relationships, and yeah, or people like you know, even these passing relationships I find very interesting and very essential to us. They are our web of survival, I think. So all that inspires me. Creating art is, to me, really a spiritual practice. There's this moment when you really don't realize anymore where you end and something else comes in. That's, I mean, the ultimate joy, when you look at your piece and you think somebody else did this. Some third hand came in. Whatever it is, I can't explain that. And I think that's where, yeah, that's the best part about it. I think visual art has this unique immediacy that I find no other art has. every art has its pros, and this is, I think, this is the great strength of visual art, that the color alone, I don't think there's anything as fast as color, as impactful as color, and or the lack thereof. You know, like black and white pieces can be just really stunning, and they just hit you somewhere in the heart. And I think it's sad that so few people tap into it, but I think that art has a really healing quality to it. A lot of people feel that art is something separate, and that art is intellectual, and they can't go there. And I think, you know, where we have to get to is that art is for everyone. If you don't understand it, it doesn't matter. And so in a lot of art, we first understand emotionally and then intellectually. And a good piece of art, I find, is a piece you will want to go back to over and over again and find different things that are really inside of you, the viewer, not the painter.
Donna Greenstein is an interesting artist. She is one of those people who has a definite balance between right brain and left brain thinking. On the one hand, Donna is highly skilled in mathematics. In fact, she was a math and computer science teacher during her working years. And at the same time, she is a painter who loves to paint animals, landscapes, and still lifes. Living on a working farm, Donna does not have to travel far to find her inspiration for her artwork.
What art means to me is my life. I can't think of what I would be doing if I wasn't doing art. I just love it. It's my fun. It makes me feel the happiest that I am. Like, I just love painting. I have hundreds of paintings that I don't know what to do with. What I need to do is go out to more art galleries and get my work out there. It's just fun. I like the creativity of deciding what I'm going to paint and the composition, how I'm going to place it on the canvas, what colors I'm going to use, making it as realistic as I want. A big part of painting is deciding when it's done. You know, like some people like very loose and what I consider not quite finished, but you know, and they would say about my work, I've gone too far. You know, they say cut it off earlier, but making art is what I like to do the best. It's just fun. I'm inspired on the farm by our farm animals, which are beef cattle, a breed called Blonde d'Aquitaine from France. And one of them just had a baby calf last night, so it's our first calf. And once the first calf comes, then the rest come like within a month, sort of one after another after another. There's lots of horse farms around here, and King Township is known for its horse farms. And just down the road, we've got a sheep farm up, and I paint a lot of sheep also, horses and sheep, but a lot of my own cattle. My dad was a veterinarian, and my brother is a veterinarian, so I grew up in an animal hospital, and I think that's kind of why I like animals so much. I'm an introvert. I've just read a book about introversion, and one of the sort of jokes was, if you go to a party, do you spend time in the corner petting the dog? And that's what I do. I just love dogs. I love animals. So I think it's just intrinsic in me. I mainly paint farm animals, but I paint anything I find beautiful. Like right now, I'm painting a fruit tart from Cappuccino Bakery in Nobleton, which makes these absolutely beautiful looking fruit, and I'm doing it much larger. I've just, a gallery in Waterloo, Paula White Gallery, told me to paint horses and a minimum size of 30 by 30, which for me is quite large. So that's what I've been doing lately. When you apply watercolors to paper, you let the white of the paper show through. So you just don't ever paint white when you're doing watercolors. When you're painting oils, you use white, mainly titanium white, and it's used a lot. So the biggest tubes you get are titanium white. So that's the one major difference between watercolors and oils, and as far as I'm concerned, they're both equally beautiful. And apparently watercolors are the most difficult to use. But what I learned in watercolors, for example, composition, how to mix colors, is applicable directly to oils. How you frame your picture, you know, what colors you use, and every artist is different. The colors that they like, how large a painting they do, so there's a lot of similarities, but learning the exact medium is a big learning curve for both watercolors and oils. I think art is important to everyone because it gives beauty in life, and most people, as I remember, are so busy with their lives that they don't have time to sit and admire art, except the people who go to museums. And I think art in our society is not as important to people as it is in Europe, where they have lots of statues and art all over. I wish it was more important, but I just love looking at artists' work to see how they do it, and I'm just awestruck.
Our next artist is Anthony Saldutto, another example of someone who is equally skilled in left and right brain thinking. Anthony has always had artistic ability and even studied art at a post-grad level, but chose to go in a completely different direction when he became a police officer back in 1976. He fortunately began to explore his artistic side while still on the force and began painting police-themed pieces, as well as scenes of nature and vistas of his childhood home in Italy. And it's fortunate for us, too, that Anthony kept painting because, in my opinion, he is a master of watercolor and his work is incredibly beautiful.
When we first moved into this house, I kind of spoke to my wife and asked if we could maybe build a room specifically for me to paint. And we built this little studio here with enough natural light so I could paint. And this is my hiding spot. I can, during years of policing, I would come here and basically, lock the door, put the headphones on, turn the music, and paint. And it would take me away from all the stress and things that are happening in this society at the moment. About 15 years within the police force, one of the officers that I used to work with asked me to paint one of the old police stations. And once I did, it started from there. I got back into it. I decided to pick up watercolors again, and I felt emotional again about the fact of going back into the arts. And the fact that I was doing something that not only was applicable to my job, but I also doing the artwork. And the first ones was I should say, we printed 4 of the original police stations of Toronto Police. And the 4 original ones are still hanging up at Toronto Police headquarters. And it started from there and continued to do watercolors, basically police-related themes. I did about 15 limited edition prints, and it was basically, as I said, strictly sold to police officers and other people. However, it was more as a police theme. I originally started in oil and decided to go into watercolor. Although I think watercolor is probably one of the hardest media that you can work with, I think it's one of the most beautiful media that you can also work with. The things that you can do with the colors is just unbelievable. I didn't really have any training as watercolor. I basically learned it on my own. I've been to a couple of seminars, but I think it's just a beautiful media that displays colors in every possible way that you can think of. Art is a way of a person showing their emotion, showing their feelings. I talk about it all the time with people when they say, well, when you paint, how do you picture that? How do you see that? And I say, I can relate to a painting by, even before I start painting something, and as soon as I put the brush on my paper, I can already picture what the painting is going to look like. And that is a way for me to give back to a person, to show the public, to show the people that this is what I am trying to portray. Even though I was doing police themes, I always loved landscapes. I loved landscapes and I loved old structures, only because of my hometown, the old buildings, the old little towns in Italy. It's beautiful. The scenery is amazing. So I paint both, but I also love nature. I've always camped, and I would always have a sketchbook with me. And Canada is a beautiful, beautiful country for nature. And as I said, the fact of painting lakes and streams and forests, that is absolutely beautiful. I enjoy basically looking at a scenery and depicting it in my own way, displaying it in my own way, and be able to show to people that something that is wonderful and that you can keep forever. It's a little different than taking a photograph. You take a photograph, it's a snapshot of the way it is at that moment. When I paint a particular painting, especially landscape, if it is even as simple as a tree, I can almost immerse myself into it. I can feel the actual branches when I paint them. I can feel the leaves. And I want to be able to show that same image to the people, the customers, or finally, hopefully. Making art makes me feel extremely, extremely calm. This is one of the reasons why I started doing this in this particular studio, was because it's a place for me to hide. It's a place for me to go away from everyday things that are happening, and I can just sit here and pick up my brushes and just think about the colors and think about the parts of the painting that I want to show in my way. Art means memories, art means love, art means peacefulness, and art means also history, because it's a way of, in days past, that was the only way to be able to basically show history.
Things I really enjoy about working on this program is learning how incredibly diverse the artists we profile are. People with such varied backgrounds, techniques, and passions. And you see how that translates into the finished pieces. It goes to show that there's a style of art to suit everyone's taste, whether you enjoy realism or prefer the abstract. Art is for everyone. If you would like to purchase works from any of the artists profiled during this series, please visit our website for contact information. We want to thank you for both supporting the artistic community and for watching our program. From all of us here, thank you for watching Color and Vision, Portraits in Art. I'm Julia Batchelor, and we'll see you next time.